Have you ever wondered why certain things in your life seem harder than they should be? Maybe it's your relationships that never seem to flow the way you want, or that constant feeling that something's missing even when everything seems fine on the surface. Deep down, maybe there's an unexplainable fear of rejection or a constant need to prove your worth. And the hardest part? Not understanding where all of this comes from. Think of the foundation of a house. If it wasn't built properly, no matter how much you decorate, paint, or rearrange the furniture, cracks will always appear. Childhood is like that foundation. It's where we first learn about love, safety, and trust. But what happens if those things were missing? If the love you needed never arrived, it might have left invisible scars that show up during life's most critical moments. Maybe you feel disconnected from others, find it hard to trust, or carry the persistent belief that you're never good enough. But here's an important truth. None of this is your fault. Even more crucially, there's a way to change. Recognizing these signs is the first step in rewriting your story. Today, we'll uncover 11 signs that reveal how a lack of love in childhood could be affecting your adult life. You'll not only understand what's happening, but also learn how to begin overcoming these challenges. This will be an important and transformative conversation. Before we continue, I'd like to invite you to join this journey with me here on the channel. Together, we explore deep topics like this one, always aiming to bring clarity and solutions to your life. So, if you value self-awareness and want to unlock your true potential, subscribe now. Every click is a step toward your transformation. Get ready, because what we will explore in the next section could change the way you see yourself. We will dive into the importance of childhood love and how it shapes everything we are. Stay with me. This is just the beginning. 1. The impact of childhood love on your life. Picture a small child holding an adult's hands. To that child, those hands represent safety, protection, and love. Now, imagine what happens when those hands are absent. The child tries to walk alone, stumbles, falls, and no one helps them back up. They begin to learn that the world is not a safe place, and to survive, they'll have to take care of themselves, even though they have no idea how. Childhood love acts like those guiding hands. It shows a child that trust is possible, that they're protected, and most importantly, that they're worthy of love. In this nurturing environment, they build confidence in the world and in themselves. But when that love is absent or inconsistent, the opposite happens. The world feels cold, and life becomes a constant challenge to feel secure. Now, imagine another scenario. A child comes home from school, excitedly clutching a drawing they've just created. They show it to someone hoping for a smile or words of encouragement, but instead, they're met with indifference or criticism. To the child, the message is clear. I'm not important. Nothing I do is ever good enough. That feeling grows with them, manifesting in adulthood as constant self-doubt and a lingering question of their own worth. What's hardest is that these scars often go unnoticed. They reveal themselves in ways we do not always connect to our childhood, such as difficulty trusting others, relationships that always seem to falter, or an overwhelming fear of failure. It is like cracks in the foundation of a house. You can repaint the walls or rearrange the furniture, but the unstable structure underneath continues to impact everything. The good news is that recognizing these cracks is the first step to repairing them. Understanding how love or its absence has shaped your view of life is essential to creating meaningful change. And if love is the key to teaching us trust, what happens when it is missing? In the next section, we will explore how this absence creates barriers that make forming true connections so difficult. Stay with me. This perspective could transform how you see your experiences. 2. Why is it hard to build trusting relationships? Growing up without the care and security we needed as children teaches the heart to protect itself. It's like putting on an invisible suit of armor to avoid feeling pain again. At first, this might seem like a good idea, but over time, that armor starts to create distance, keeping even those who genuinely want to love us at arm's length. Have you ever felt like no matter how hard you try to connect with someone, there's an invisible barrier keeping you apart? Maybe you're afraid to trust, worried that you'll get hurt, or have a sense that if someone gets too close, they'll eventually leave. These feelings often stem from a lack of love and emotional security in childhood. When we don't learn that it's safe to trust, we grow up with a constant sense of caution, always bracing for something to go wrong. Here's something important to understand. This fear of connecting is not your fault. It's a defense mechanism created long ago to protect you. The good news is, it doesn't have to stay that way. Acknowledging this difficulty is the first step toward breaking free from those emotional walls. Now, let me ask you, have you ever struggled to trust or connect with someone? Or perhaps you know someone who seems distant, even when they truly want to be close? Share your experience in the comments. I would love to hear your story. Opening up is a powerful reminder that you are not alone and that overcoming these barriers is possible. Speaking of breaking barriers, have you ever wondered what might be hiding behind this fear of opening up? Many of us, without realizing it, adopt behaviors that sabotage our own happiness. In the next section, we will dive into these behaviors and how recognizing them can transform your life. Do not go anywhere. What is coming up could be truly eye-opening. 3. Are you sabotaging your own happiness? Picture a child clutching their favorite toy tightly, afraid to lose it because it is their only source of comfort. Now imagine that child grown up. The same fear remains, but it manifests differently, perhaps as jealousy, a need to control everything, or an inability to let others into their life. What once protected them now becomes invisible barriers that sabotage their happiness. Think of moments when jealousy crept in without reason, or when you meticulously planned every detail to avoid surprises. Maybe you distanced yourself from someone before things got serious, believing it would shield you from greater pain. These behaviors are like an emotional armor built over time to protect old wounds, but now keeping you from the joy you seek. It's like a castle surrounded by a deep moat. While the moat protects against harm, it also prevents good people from coming in. These patterns protect you, but they isolate you as well. The key to breaking this cycle is recognizing its origin. These behaviors stem from a history where love and safety were lacking. Understanding this is not about assigning blame. It is about freedom. Once you realize you no longer need this armor, you can begin living with openness, allowing connections without fear. Fear, however, runs deep and often roots itself in broken trust. In the next section, we will uncover how mistrust forms and why it can block the path to genuine relationships. Stay with me. This next part may reveal answers you did not expect. 4. Broken trust. Why is it so hard to believe in others? Have you ever felt suspicious of someone without a clear reason? As if something inside you whispers that it's safer to doubt or protect yourself? This feeling is more common than you might think, especially for those who grew up without the emotional security they needed. When love in childhood is inconsistent or absent, the mind learns that the world can be a dangerous place, planting the idea that trusting others is risky. This mistrust shows up in many ways. You might see acts of kindness as having hidden motives, or believe that deep down no one truly cares. It's as though you're always bracing for the worst, even when it never comes. The irony is that living this way can push away the very people who genuinely care about you. But where does this difficulty come from? It traces back to childhood. If you did not feel you could fully trust those around you, such as parents or caregivers, your mind created a barrier to protect you. While this defense may have been helpful in the past, it now prevents you from forming meaningful connections. Let me ask you, have you ever struggled to trust even when you wanted to believe in someone? Or do you know someone who keeps their distance even when they crave closeness? Share your thoughts in the comments. I would love to hear your story. Sometimes, opening up about these struggles is the first step toward change. Speaking of change, trust is just one piece of a much bigger puzzle. Other parts of our inner selves also suffer when love is missing, and one of the most affected areas is self-esteem. In the next section, we'll explore how this emotional foundation shapes how you see yourself and what you can do to rebuild it. Stay with me, because this next part is crucial for understanding the impact of these experiences. 5. How childhood shapes your self-worth. Imagine a child learning to draw. They create something simple yet deeply meaningful to them. With shining eyes, they run to show it to someone important. But instead of hearing, "How beautiful," or even seeing a small smile, all they are met with is silence or criticism. "You could have done better," they might hear. To that child, this is not just feedback on their drawing, it feels like a message about their worth. "I am not good enough." Now fast forward to adulthood. That child has grown up, but the feeling of never being enough lingers. It resides in the inner voice that criticizes every choice and magnifies flaws even when no one else notices. It's like looking at yourself in a cracked mirror. You try to see who you are, but the reflection is always distorted. This is self-esteem in danger, a direct result of missing love and validation during childhood. When you grow up believing you must be better to be loved, life can turn into an endless quest for external validation. You might find yourself saying yes when you want to say no, or trying too hard to please others, losing sight of your own needs in the process. But no matter how much you do, it can feel like pouring water into a bucket with a small hole. It is never quite enough. Here's the good news. That critical voice isn't the truth about you. It was shaped by past experiences, but it can be challenged. Every time you acknowledge your worth, even in the smallest way, it's like mending a piece of that broken mirror. Gradually, you begin to see yourself clearly, and most importantly, with love. But low self-esteem rarely exists in isolation. It often comes hand in hand with another significant challenge: the fear of abandonment. This fear could be influencing your relationships in ways you don't even realize. In the next section, we'll explore where this fear comes from and how you can start to overcome it. Stay with me, because this could be the key to understanding many aspects of your life. 6. How the fear of abandonment affects your connections. Have you ever felt an overwhelming fear that someone important in your life might leave you? It's as if, even without reason, you're always bracing for the moment when you'll be left behind. This fear often has its roots in childhood, when the love and security you needed weren't fully provided. It hides deep within you, but can shape how you navigate relationships. This fear of abandonment can show up in many ways. Perhaps you constantly feel the need to stay close to others, seeking validation at every turn. Something as small as a delayed text response might make your heart race with thoughts that something has gone wrong. Or maybe you avoid deep connections altogether, building walls around your heart to protect yourself from potential pain. Both behaviors share the same goal: avoiding hurt, even if it means sacrificing meaningful relationships. Here's what's crucial to remember. This fear doesn't define you. It's a defense mechanism you created as a child to cope with what you felt back then. The good news is that, as an adult, you can start to take off this armor and allow yourself to experience more genuine connections. If you've found your way here, it's because you're seeking to understand yourself better and live with greater ease. Know that you're not alone in this journey. If this insight is helping you notice things you hadn't before, subscribe to the channel now. By doing so, you'll continue learning how to overcome these challenges and reconnect with who you truly are. Every step matters, and this could be one of the most important. Since we are talking about connections, did you know that a lack of childhood love can lead to emotional extremes? Some people become highly dependent, while others retreat into complete isolation. In the next section, we will explore how this happens and, most importantly, how to find balance. Stay with me. This could be the turning point you have been looking for. 7. Emotional extremes between dependence and isolation. Imagine a child who falls and gets hurt, looking around for someone to help them. But when no one comes, What do they learn? They begin to believe they must face pain alone. This unspoken lesson follows them into adulthood. Some, longing to fill the void left by a lack of love, become deeply dependent on others. Meanwhile, others, afraid of being hurt again, build high walls around themselves, choosing isolation. These extreme behaviors, though opposite, stem from the same source: the fear of rejection and vulnerability. Emotional dependence feels like holding on to someone as tightly as possible, convinced that your happiness depends entirely on them. Small actions, like a cold response or a delayed message, can trigger a storm of insecurities. Every subtle change in the other person's behavior feels like a threat of abandonment. This attachment suffocates both the dependent individual and those around them. On the other hand, isolation appears to offer protection. Those who isolate themselves build a fortress around their hearts, avoiding emotional closeness to protect against potential pain. It may seem like a practical solution, but it's a trap. While isolation keeps harm at bay, it also brings loneliness, slowly eroding the possibility of forming meaningful connections. Though they seem like opposites, both extremes share the same root: an attempt to shield oneself from the pain of rejection. Yet, by avoiding pain, they also block the experience of true love and genuine connections. The first step to finding balance is recognizing these patterns. You don't need to depend on someone else for happiness, nor do you need to shut yourself off from the world. There's a middle ground where you can open yourself up to others while still maintaining healthy boundaries. But the impact of childhood emotional neglect does not stop with relationships. It can also shape how you deal with authority figures. In the next chapter, we will explore why interacting with these individuals can feel so challenging and how it might be influencing your professional life. Stay with me. What is next is a vital piece of the puzzle. 8. Why authority figures feel intimidating. Have you ever felt a knot in your stomach when dealing with someone in a position of authority? It could be a boss, a teacher, or even a family member. Sometimes, just hearing a critique or an instruction triggers a reaction within you, as if it were a personal attack. This happens because, when we grow up without a loving, supportive figure during childhood, our relationship with authority can become distorted. Without the emotional security that parents or caregivers should provide, it is common to grow up feeling a constant sense of insecurity. As adults, this insecurity often resurfaces when we encounter authority figures. For some, it shows up as distrust, making it hard to believe these individuals have good intentions. For others, it appears as submission, a nearly desperate need to please and seek approval, even at the cost of ignoring their own needs. This imbalance can create challenges in various areas of life. You might overreact to criticism, or conversely, accept anything just to avoid conflict. Recognizing these patterns is crucial to building healthier relationships with authority, ones based on mutual respect rather than fear or dependency. Let me ask you, have you ever struggled when dealing with someone who holds power over you? Perhaps you found yourself defensive, or maybe you bent over backward to gain their approval. Share your thoughts in the comments. Talking about it can be liberating and might even help others facing similar challenges. As we reflect on these power dynamics, it is important to recognize another consequence of unmet emotional needs in childhood: the relentless pursuit of perfection. Up next, we will delve into how perfectionism might be stealing your peace and keeping you from living with ease. Stay tuned. This could be one of the most eye-opening parts of your journey. 9. How perfectionism steals your joy. Picture a child coming home from school with a report card full of good grades. They're excited, hoping for a smile or a word of praise. Instead, they hear, "Why didn't you get the highest grade in every subject?" That question might seem small, but to the child, it delivers a powerful message. What you do is never enough. Now fast forward to adulthood. That child has grown up, but the belief remains that they must be perfect to earn recognition, love, or even respect. Every task feels like a test, and every mistake becomes proof that they are not good enough. At work, they might push themselves to exhaustion, striving for perfection without ever allowing a moment of rest. At home, they could set impossibly high standards for themselves and others, leading to constant frustration. But inside, there is a relentless battle. It is as if an inner voice never stops saying, "You need to try harder. It is still not enough." This endless quest for perfection does not bring peace. It steals the joy of life. And perhaps the hardest part is that even when you achieve a goal, the satisfaction is fleeting because there's always another higher bar waiting. Perfectionism is not about doing things well, it is about trying to fill an emotional void created long ago when love seemed conditional on flawless results. But here is an important truth. You do not need to be perfect to be worthy of love and respect. Mistakes are part of life. They do not diminish your value. In fact, they remind you of your humanity. Recognizing this is like setting down a heavy backpack you've carried for years. It's freeing to realize that your worth isn't tied to what you do, but to who you are. And as you release this pressure, you begin to live more authentically and with greater ease. However, there is another challenge that might be blocking your full freedom: the difficulty of expressing emotions. In the next section, we will uncover how emotional repression can hinder your connection with others and even with yourself. Stay with me, because this next part is essential for your transformation. 10. The struggle to speak your emotions. Have you ever wanted to say what you're truly feeling, only to hold back at the last moment, as if the words get stuck in your throat and you're convinced that opening up might lead to something bad? This difficulty in expressing emotions is often rooted in childhood. Growing up in an environment where feelings weren't welcomed or validated teaches us that it's safer to hide them. Over time, this turns into a habit. Instead of voicing what bothers you, silence becomes your default response. When you feel sad or frustrated, you might pretend everything is fine. But the problem is, these buried feelings do not just go away, they build up. It is like inflating a balloon too much. Eventually it bursts, often in unexpected ways, such as sudden outbursts of anger or subtle passive-aggressive behaviors. Emotional repression also takes a toll on relationships. Those around you might perceive you as distant or uncaring, even though you're full of emotions on the inside. This disconnect makes it difficult to form deep, genuine bonds because true intimacy requires an open heart. Now let me ask you, have you ever found yourself wanting to speak up, but ultimately keeping your feelings to yourself? Or do you know someone who always seems to hide what they are feeling? Share your experiences in the comments. Sometimes just talking about it can be the first step toward understanding what is really going on. Speaking of relationships, there is an even deeper issue connected to this emotional struggle: the tendency to be drawn to toxic relationships. In the next section, we will explore how a lack of childhood love can lead you to accept less than you deserve. Stay with me. What is coming next might change the way you see things forever. 11. Toxic relationships. Why do you accept less than you deserve? Imagine a child trying to get the attention of an important adult in their life. They give their best effort, drawing pictures, being funny, or even behaving perfectly, all in the hope of receiving a smile or a hug. But instead, they are met with indifference or criticism. Without realizing it, this child begins to internalize a painful belief: love must be earned, even at a cost. Now picture that same child as an adult, entering relationships that always seem to demand too much effort. Perhaps they're drawn to emotionally unavailable people, believing that if they try hard enough, they'll finally earn love. Or maybe they accept harmful behaviors, as if pain is a normal part of relationships. Deep down, it's like they're repeating that desperate quest for a love that never came. Toxic relationships have a way of trapping you. They drain your energy, chip away at your self-esteem, and make you feel like there's no other option. But that's not true. Love should never mean constant suffering or sacrifice. True love is light, safe, and above all, respectful. Breaking free from this cycle may feel intimidating, but it's entirely possible. The first step is recognizing that you deserve more. You don't need to accept less out of fear of being alone or because you believe there's nothing better out there. Learning to set boundaries, honor your needs, and recognize that healthy love exists are transformative steps. Now you might be wondering, if this pattern stems from the past, how can I change it and create something better? In the next section, we'll explore exactly that. You'll learn how identifying these signs is the beginning of a journey to transform your story and build a brighter, lighter future. Stay with me, because the most important part is just ahead. Rewrite your story and reclaim your future. Throughout this video, we have explored how a lack of love in childhood can leave unseen marks that we carry into adulthood. From struggles with trust to a constant fear of abandonment or even accepting less than we deserve in our relationships, these are all reflections of a past that may not have been as nurturing as it should have been. But here is something important to remember. These marks do not have to define who you are or shape your future. Recognizing these signs is the first step toward change. It is like turning on a light in a dark room. You begin to see clearly what needs to be addressed. The good news is that no matter how difficult the past was, the present is in your hands. You can learn to value yourself, rebuild your confidence, and create relationships that bring more joy and balance to your life. Now, I have a special request for you. If this video helped you see something important or offered a new perspective, please subscribe to the channel. By doing so, you'll not only continue this journey of self-discovery, but you'll also help others who, like you, may be searching for answers. Don't forget to like this video and share it with someone who needs to hear these words. A small gesture like this can make a big difference. And one last thing, let me know in the comments which sign resonated most with you, or perhaps you've already noticed some of these reflections in your own life. I'd love to hear how this conversation connected with you. Finally, what is coming next is an essential complement to everything we have discussed here. The next video on your screen will take you even deeper into this journey, offering insights that can completely transform how you view your emotions and your potential. Do not miss it. It might just be the next step toward changing your life. See you in the next video.